Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Glad to have you here. Today we have another set of tournament battles for you. This time it will be Phillus leading Chaos versus Jus Empire. So we'll start over here. Pretty unorthodox build from Phillus here. You can see he does have 4 Forsaken spread out. He's got 1 Marauder kind of as a meat shield. And then he has 1 Chaos Warrior on this side, which is I think a good bet because the shields are very important against the Empire. And these guys will do pretty well even against greatswords, so I just think they're a decent pick. And then some halberdiers in the back for just a little bit of anti-large. And the unorthodox part of this build is the 4 Chaos Knights with Lances. These are incredibly expensive units, and they are meant for anti-cav duty. So I guess expecting a heavy cav build from the Empire, with some Chaos Warhounds with poison out on each flank, and you can see he does have 1 Chaos Knight out here. He does have Kolek and a Sorcerer of Shadows. Just as Empire Army, you can see 2 Outriders up here. Outriders are going to struggle against Chaos just because of the really extremely cheap Chaos Warhounds, price-wise. And you can see they do have so much more speed than the Outriders that they really cut into their usefulness. So, like against Vampire counts and against Chaos, anything with a cheap Warhound unit, I generally tend to not bring these skirmisher units, just because if your enemy invests just a little bit in those Warhounds, it really makes these guys hard to be useful. You can see he has a main line of greatswords supported by Sigmar Disciples, a little defensive geometry here. In the front, he has the unbreakable Sigmar Sons to take the charge, and these Outriders with grenade launchers are going to be shooting over the heads of his line and helping these guys in the battle. And they'll do pretty good because these guys don't have armor piercing, so even if they do hit the Sigmar Sons, they'll probably do more damage to the enemy than to his own main line. He has 2 units of halberds kind of forming the back of his box, with some regular swordsmen here with these Demigryph Knights with halberds. And then he does have 2 huntsmen who are stocked, so you can't see them. You can see they're facing 2 different directions. I kind of like that. Expecting cav, because they do have that anti-large bonus, so that's where they will be most useful. And you can see the captain is kind of giving his aura. I like this placement, giving his encouragement aura to all these troops. And then Karl Franz over here is giving his encouragement to all these troops. So hopefully overlapping enough to kind of cover his whole army. And we'll just get this started here. So you can see these Outriders not firing yet, so it's going to be very hard for them to use all their ammo unless they're firing from the very beginning of the game. But, you know, they're a little bit more mobile than handgunners, so potentially in the late game they can be more useful if these Warhounds and the Chaos Knights can be taken care of with this huge amount of anti-large armor piercing on the field. You can see he also does have 2 units of mortars, which is a decent bring, but what people tend to forget is that Forsaken do have a lot of armor, so those mortars will be really good, really essentially only against these Chaos Marauders, but these Forsaken with their 85 armor will be able to avoid most of the damage. So you can see here these mortars are coming in, doing some good damage to those Marauders. You can see what they do to like cheap chaff like this, and that's what mortars are really good against. You can see the second volley is going to be coming in. Oh man, just so cool. I wish I used to use mortars a lot as the Empire, but I've kind of tended away because, at least in vanilla, because of the tendency for just like large armored units, and you know, it's kind of hard to protect them sometimes, and I don't have the best micro. You can see here that Forsaken got hit by like a good volley of potentially I think 3 hit, and it did almost no damage. Here, Lord of the Storm is going to come down on these Sigmar Disciples and just chunk them. So it only killed 1 unit, but it took out a lot of their health. So nice placement there. You can see Kolek netted here just outside of range, so probably not the best, but you can see he is going to get 1 volley off on Kolek. Any damage you can get on him early on is good, and you can see these Forsaken are going to have to come in here, but they're going to get those flank shots by these Outriders, so you can see how these guys are a little bit more useful. They can kind of get into spots quicker and kind of have these flanking charges, but you can see these Outriders do get caught, but they're going to pull through into their halberds, so that's decent for the Empire player. But you can see these Forsaken just getting into these anti-large units is not what the Empire wants. I would have probably sent some of these greatswords, split them up, Made sure they got their huge charge bonuses of 24 on these guys, so that their halberdiers here could really focus on this cav. And you can see the Demigryph Knights are going to be coming in here against the cav with some halberds to support, so that's looking decently well. But great move here, just ignoring kind of this halberd unit and going for a nice rear charge here. It's really going to help crush this line. You can see those mortars still coming in, still doing a decent amount of damage, and those outriders shooting right into the flank is definitely going to hurt a lot. Here you can see these grenades are coming over here, just helping these Sigmar Suns wreck these Chaos Marauders even faster. But you can see these Sigmarite Disciples are going to start getting crushed. Great swords getting crushed by Kolek. And these Huntsmen have been disabled. It looks like he was able to sneak his Chaos Knights through this little gap in the line and come in here and start shutting down some of these guys. You can see the Chaos Lord of Shadows is active. Here you can see they are getting shot. And I actually think attacked in rear exposed flank. So I guess, yeah, the mortar doesn't do too much morale damage to his own troops. I was figuring that was what cracked these guys, but it was just this huge amount of Forsaken on the field. You can see over here they are winning against these Chaos Knights with lances, but you can see these swordsmen still kind of waiting in the back when they really need to be sent kind of up through the middle and starting to shift this front or these kind of flanks here, because the front is doing okay, but these flanks are getting crashed through. He's done a really great job of protecting these mortars so far, but we'll see if he can continue. These outriders still opening fire. Mortars coming in. Chaos Warriors really need to be brought in here. You can see Fa's protection, so all these guys are going to have a way more melee defense. That's a really good draw there, because look at these guys, 90 melee defense, 86, 84, and it lasts for a decent amount of time, and it adds armor, which does not hurt, especially against Forsaken, which don't really do armor piercing damage. You can see I like this, not being careless with the cav, keeping a lot in reserve. Here you can see they're going to posture up over here. These Chaos Knights are going to get a nice charge on these swordsmen. They're going to do good in that battle, just because the swordsmen without armor piercing damage can't really hurt them back. But you can see these outriders are getting caught. These grenade launchers are kind of not where they would want to be, harassing and running away. And you can see Karl Franz over here just trying to hunt down Kolek, but just continuously getting knocked over. Baroness Time Warp is going to make him much more likely to hit, though, which is what he needs right now. And here it looks like he's going to dodge a Lord of the Storm very deftly. And a nice net over here catching these guys. Would have loved to see that overcast, but he probably doesn't have the mana just because he's been spamming those AoE buffs here, which has been saving his front line. You can see these Sigmar Suns here are losing to the Halberdiers just because they don't have armor piercing damage. They're not really going to be putting a lot of damage. They will hold forever though, which is good. Oh, you can see here Pit of Shades is going to be coming down, doing some damage, not picking these guys up just because they're so heavily armored, but it will still do a lot of damage regardless. And you can see Karl Franz just running after Kolek, getting a nice hit in there, but I think Kolek's just going to keep running away because Kolek is actually getting pretty low. You can see these Demigryph Knights slowly just getting worn down by the ton of anti-large armor-piercing cav that he has on the field. You can see these Forsaken still just taking their time dealing with these Halberdiers. And this is what they love. This is like almost the perfect fight for the Forsaken. Mortars still going off. I think they're trying to help this front line. Definitely doing a lot of damage to both sides of that fight. And you can see these great swords are trading pretty evenly here with the Chaos Warriors. Nice job. Kolek just continuously running away, getting strikes in wherever he can, shutting these guys down. You can see Enfeebling Foe is cast on Karl Franz, so potentially hoping to turn around, do some quick fighting, or at least until it wears off. You can see this Chaos Lord of Shadows. Great use of this guy, using him to kind of help tie down these units, finish them off a little quicker so that the Chaos Knights with Lances can get where they need to go. And man, I love this use of Kolek, just keeping him running around, terrifying, routing these remaining troops. So it is not looking good for the Empire player here. You can see the Forsaken just were able to be too cost effective on a lot of this infantry and the mortars, and kind of the killing power of his army wasn't able to do what they needed to do. Mostly the Outriders and the grenade launcher cav. And you can see the balance of power over here. Pit of Shades is going to be dropping on these guys. The ideal target are these lightly armored infantries. Yeah, you can see they're going to waver here real quick and break. Forsaken coming in to finish them off, taking some damage in the process. And yeah, you can see it's just Karl Franz left at this point. And he's going to be hammering into these Chaos Knights with Lances if he ever gets up. And yeah, he's just going to be run off the field. It's just the Sigmar's sons there, as Jus admits defeat. So let's take a look here. Yeah, you can see these Forsaken really just racking up a ton of kills. These Chaos Knights with the Lances doing what they needed to do, forcing him to spend a lot of his resources holding that box. Yeah, and you can see these Halberdiers just not getting very many kills. And these Greatswords, you kind of expect them to do better in this matchup, but I think they just got hit by Kolek and potentially the Pit of Shades. I think I might have missed a couple of them. But those rear charges from Chaos Knights with Lances and Kolek really can do a number on those elite infantry. And yeah, you can see these Outriders here just not getting what they need to do done here. The mortars got more kills than I expected, though, and they were decently accurate. So let's go here. I think this is second battle. So here you can see very different lineup from Jus this time. You can see he still does have 3 Halberdiers, which I think is a good pick in this matchup, especially when you know the opponent has to bring Kolek. This time he has a Fire Wizard with Karl Franz, some Sigmar's Sons. He's got 4 units of Greatswords. So definitely doubling down on that armor piercing to help deal with those Forsaken. He's got some Sigmarite Disciples in the middle to buff them all up. A Bright Wizard to buff them all up too, and he's got 3 anti-large Demigryph Knights with Halberds. So I think it's 4 Chaos Knights with Lances against 4 Chaos Knights with Lances against 3 Demigryph Knights with Halberds. The Chaos Knights with Lances do have that poison support and Kolek, but these Demigryphs will potentially have the buffs from the Flame Wizard. I think there's some slight variations in this Chaos army. No Halberdiers, it looks like. No Chaos Warriors with Halberdiers. And instead he bought more Chaos Martyrs and more Warhounds. So always a good move. And we can just kind of fast forward as these lines move to meet this much wider Chaos army, meaning this kind of thicker, sturdier, layered Empire defense. Fireball coming down, just going to miss. Just barely. See these guys posturing, trying to find out where they want to go. You can see this main line. Chaos Marauders in for the initial fight, taking that charge. I definitely love. And you can see these Demigryph Knights. Sorry about that. My headset did die. These Demigryphs did get a nice charge on these Forsaken. But they're going to get caught there by Kolek and by these Chaos Knights with Lances. So this is not what he wants for a good engagement for these Chaos Knights or these Demigryph Knights. They need that charge bonus, and they need to be focusing on this huge force of Chaos Knights. Great job here, dropping Withering, reducing their armor so that the Forsaken can actually do some damage. You can see this front line is probably going to lose this fight, though you can see he is pulling off some of these greatswords. So they are taking some damage as they kind of flee from this fight. Karl Franz yet to be engaged. Sigmar's Sons holding up the middle, and some Halberdiers again get caught by these Forsaken. They're just going to love this fight. You can see these Demigryphs a little out on their own here, but I think they're going to get a nice cheeky charge on these Chaos Knights with Lances. But they are just severely outnumbered out here. I believe this is like 6,000 gold to their like 2,000 gold. So definitely, if the Chaos player is able to react and surround these guys, they will be annihilated. These Chaos Knights with Halberds, really need to get out here and start supporting these 2 engagements. You can see again these Chaos Knights with Lances, and the Warhounds coming in the back with the Forsaken in for support. You can see these Demigryph Knights. Nice job cascading Fire Cloak on these guys. It's going to bump their damage and their defense by a ton. But they're just in such a bad situation. And over here you can see he is moving to surround these Chaos Knights with Lances, taking a decent amount of damage. But as these guys come to surround, it might not be enough. You can see this front line is doing pretty well. These Marauders holding up a little bit better than I would have thought. the greatswords just have such a low model count that they're going to have a hard time cutting through the chaff here. And this is a very cheap unit that's going to hold up this greatsword for a very long time. And you can see these Sigmarite Disciples probably out of range now from their aura for a lot of these guys, so I would have loved to see them kind of engaged here or pulled back to kind of help these flank engagements. You can see these Chaos Knights with Lances getting ready to come around. So you can see a very tough fight. Nice job getting these great swords and these halberdiers in here. Maybe that'll switch this fight kind of in their favor. But you can see just the overwhelming support here is just slowly eating away at these Demigryph Knights. And you can see these guys were surrounded, and you can see their morale plummeting. Nice use of the halberdiers. Nice Pit of Shades here being dropped on a good portion of these greatswords. Probably overcast here, so you can see it's doing a ton of damage, really helping to swing this front line in their favor with the magic. You can see a Lord of the Storm. Oh man, that is a lot of Demigryph Knights. Oh, so not too much damage. And you can see Kolek over here just coming for that Bright Wizard. And these Forsaken over here did finally break through. This fight is wrapping up, and so this is looking terrifying. Nice job getting some halberdiers in here. But the Forsaken and the Chaos Warhounds have already done a lot of damage to these Demigryph Knights. Oh man, just so much more cav support coming in. Kolek running away from these Demigryph Knights. So good thing he had some more in reserve. They're going to get a nice side and rear charge. And oh man, these Demigryph Knights are not going to have a good time. Surrounded, poisoned, beat by Star Crusher. They are going to go. You can see these Sigmarite Disciples coming in finally to help these Chaos Knights Lances. Luckily that Bright Wizard did live, so he's going to be casting some Flaming Swords of Ruin. But you can see a lot of this stuff just is starting to dwindle. Nice job with Withering, I guess, and Cascading Fire Cloak stacking up on this guy. Oh man, just another Pit of Shades. So that's going to do a lot of damage. Oh, and a rear charge from Kolek. These greatswords are just going to break almost immediately. So nice job isolating, using magic where you know you have holes in your lineup. The Chaos Warriors, the Chaos Forces here led by Phillus, knew they didn't have a lot of armor piercing, so they dropped those armor piercing Pits of Shades to kind of fill that gap in their lineup. And you can see these greatswords coming in. And it was really just being able to isolate those Demigryph Knights, not letting them fight together, not letting them kind of dictate the pace of the battle with their halberdier support. So you can see it is just, these Demigryph Knights are slowly going the way of the dodo. Greatswords are fleeing, and another Lord of the Storm here. Good target on those Sigmar Suns. Again, targeting those armored units. Really good stuff here, and you can see Karl Franz is surrounded. Kolek's finishing off the last bit of greatswords. And man, these Chaos Knights with Lances are just fantastic. It looks like they have fire resistance, missile resistance, just a bigger cause fear. Look, you can see they have a ton of armor piercing and anti-large, and those flaming attacks probably don't hurt either. You can see these Chaos Knights with Lances with their armor piercing damage are actually going to do pretty good against these Sigmarite Disciples. See these guys still steady, even though army losses is kicking in. Oh man, yeah, there we go. You can see Karl Franz over here as well. Just because he has that duelist trait, so he's not going to be able to cut through these guys really quick. He really wants to be on Kolek, but Kolek's just so fast that it's very difficult for on-foot Karl Franz to not just be knocked around. And you can see those constant enfeebling foes there from the Sorcerer of Shadows, really debilitating his ability to get what he needs to do done. And you can see, of course, Sigmar's Sons, as per usual, are the last thing on the field as Phillus moves on to the next stage in the tournament. Man, these guys, Sigmar's Sons, probably my favorite unit. And they look so armored. This is how I kind of imagined all Empire infantry. Oh my god. Just look at Kolek all angry. This is how I kind of imagined all the Empire swordsmen. A little bit more heavily armored. It would make sense because of what they're fighting. Giant like orcs and terrifying creatures. It would not be very fun to be a human in the Warhammer universe. So you can see a lot less kills, but it was a kind of a smaller, more elite army, and really just focusing those demigryphs is what allowed Phillus isolating them, surrounding them, getting those infantry in those engagements so that not all of the demigryph knights' attacks could go onto the cavalry, whereas the cavalry could get all of their attacks off on the demigryph knights. Just really helped swing that fight in his favor. And good job as well from Philius isolating those kind of blobs of armored infantry and making sure he got that done when he really didn't have very much armor piercing except for the Chaos Knights and Kolek himself. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll bring you some more tournament battles in the future. That's that.